difference in tone from the trade deadline when Howie Roseman said to everybody, absolutely, off the table, we're not trading A.J. Brown, to here in Indy where it seems like he's almost saying, well, I'll never just say no to listening to offers. A.J. Brown's Twitter handle is always open. Well, Howie Roseman this time of the year is always listening. That's his mantra. Offer me. What do you got?
So that was Peter Schrager yesterday on Get Up, and he and Louis Riddick join us now from Indianapolis in the NFL Combine. And so, Peter, getting the skinny, if you will, on A.J. Brown there. Should A.J. Brown want to stay in Philly? We heard all the drama this past year. Should he even want to be there? I'll go to you first. What do you think, Peter?
I think he should. I think the Eagles are an incredible team, and he's won a Super Bowl there, and I also think they should want to keep him. The prohibitive issue here is cost. It really is. If they trade him before June 1st, it's going to cost them $40 million in dead cap space. If they trade him after June 1st, it becomes significantly cheaper. Truth of the matter is, though, after talking to several sources the last couple of days, the feeling around Philadelphia is this. They interviewed 17 different offensive coordinators. One of the guys got the job, a 32-year-old first-time play caller named Sean Mannion. When Sean Mannion came to the table in Philly and met with the Philly brass, he presented his plans for the offense. And he had developed this entirely long presentation of cut-ups of how he would use the talent they have on the field in his offense. It included a ton of motion, a ton of play-action passing, and A.J. Brown was a significant part of that presentation. Time heals some wounds. I would think now that we've had a few weeks removed from the Eagles' unfortunate departure from the playoffs, cooler heads will prevail, and with a fresh new voice in that room, I would think Sean Mannion and A.J. Brown give them a new chance to start anew and not have the same stuff that was held over from last year, maybe even the year before.
Do you agree, Louis? What do you think?
Yeah, you know what? Let's put it this way, okay? So there's obviously things that A.J. Brown wasn't happy with as far as how he was being utilized. There was obviously things that the organization wasn't happy with as far as how the offense was constructed and how it was implemented and how it was utilized on game day. But we sit here and we talk about the Philadelphia Eagles nonstop during the course of the season about just how elementary, predictable, bland, lack of creativity that they showed on the offensive side of the ball. So with that being what we know in the rearview mirror, if I'm A.J. Brown, who also knows this because he was the one who was living it, why would you want to go through anything similar to that going forward? Now, that being said, as Peter just lays out, Sean Mannion represents a fresh new start. So if you're A.J. Brown right now, you're sitting there thinking, hey, look, how am I going to be deployed? How am I going to be utilized? How diverse is this offense going to be? How detailed is this passing game going to be? How diverse is it going to be? How's it going to really put me in the best situations to really accentuate all the things that I bring to the table? Because clearly he feels as though that wasn't happening. I guess the proof will be once you get to OTAs, mini camp, and then in the training camp, if we get that far with him still being on the football team, that's where the proof will come. That's where we'll see whether or not this team has turned a corner. Because right now, there's a lot more questions than there are answers. Look, I'm not the one. Peter's not the one. None of us who talk about these situations are the ones who were sitting on the sideline, on the sideline reading books, talking about how we weren't being utilized. We didn't create that narrative. We're witnessing it and watching it and then commenting on it. So look, obviously it's real. So let's just see what they have in store for it going forward.
78 catches, 1,003 yards, 7 touchdowns last season, giving him 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons with the Philadelphia Eagles since he arrived there. And he produced 2 seasons of 1,400-plus yards, which stands as the 2 highest in franchise history. So there's a level of production there with A.J. Brown that we can't argue. But it's because of that production that there's so much trepidation surrounding him, fellas. And I don't think this is a place that he wants to be. Let me be very, very clear about what I'm about to say. With both Peter and Louis on the screen, me looking right at y'all. I don't believe that A.J. Brown believes in Jalen Hurts. I don't believe he believes in Nick Sirianni. And I'm not saying that he doesn't think they can play quarterback, that he doesn't think they can coach. I'm talking about for his selfish motives, and I don't say selfish in a negative way in this regard, him being a receiver, knowing what he's capable of doing. I don't believe he trusts either party to highlight him in the way he wants to be highlighted so you can get max production from him. I don't believe he believes the Philadelphia Eagles under head coach Nick Sirianni are those dudes. And this season, this upcoming season, assuming he stays an Eagle, will be his 5th offensive coordinator since he's arrived. Now, he could sit up there and go on Micah Parsons' podcast during Super Bowl week and talk about how he's excited about the coaching changes and what have you. How can you be? Think about this. Brian Johnson was let go after 1 year, okay? Kevin Patullo was let go after 1 year. Now, Steichen and Moore, they weren't let go. They produced in a very, very big way for you before leaving to get head coaching jobs. But they had some experience. So when you bring in a guy that's first-time coordinator and you failed on that once, you failed on that twice, and then you're going to try it a third time, you don't think A.J. Brown notices? If y'all notice, if I notice, you damn sure know that he notices. And then you look at an offense. You went from 8th to 24th. You went from 7th to 19th in scoring offense. You went from 10th to 24th in third down conversions. And you basically led the league in your percentage of 3-and-out drives and was 21st in points per drive. All of these things are things that A.J. Brown is paying attention to because he's saying, I know I'm a stud. You're paying me like I'm a stud. You think I'm going to sit around and let you dilute my potency and my marketability and my cachet going through another season like we just went through? I don't believe for 1 second he wants to stay. I just think he knows it'll be very, very difficult for them to unload him, and he's a realist, so he was petulant in his own way just to let him know, listen, if you can, get me the hell up out of here because I don't think this is the place for me. I think that's what's going on, and if he ends up staying in Philadelphia, it's because it's in their best interest to keep him, and they're making business decisions that he has to capitulate to. Simple.
Okay, well, all of the stats kind of lean that way. He did have his lowest everything in statistical on the offensive side last year with the Philadelphia Eagles. But we're going to leave this here for right now.
What is the talk on the ground there at the Combine?
Yeah, talking to people close to that situation, I came away with the impression that the Eagles are not eager to trade him. This is Howie Roseman and the Eagles. You can't rule anything out. If somebody comes with a great offer, I'm certain they would consider it. But I don't think they're out here trying to, drum up a market so that someone can take him off of their hands. I think ideally they would love for the offense to snap back to high-level performance and him to be happy with that and move ahead in 2026, try to get back to the Super Bowl.
So let's stop down on that one a minute and talk about it. And Louis, you and I were having this conversation a little bit earlier this morning, but for those just joining us here at the top of a new hour, I mean, I don't know the insides of the situation, and so sometimes it's dangerous to try and psychoanalyze relationships between people that you don't know and you're not around on a daily basis. But just the evidence that is evident to all of us, the stuff that all of us can see, it has been quite apparent, it seems, even through a Super Bowl run of 2 years ago, and then certainly the majority of last year, he doesn't look like a happy player. He hasn't been anywhere near the productive player that we know he should be and could be in a different circumstance. And so it is my belief that it is probably in both sides' best interest if they can get a really good package in return for A.J. Brown to move on from the Eagles this offseason. What do you think, Louis?
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to consider it, Greeny. Look, this sometimes reminds me of that meme that you see on the internet where, there's fire all around someone and they're just sitting there going, everything's fine. Everything's fine, as everything's just kind of burning down around you. And it's just like, and then you can bury your head in the sand and just say, hey, look, this is a great player. He's one of the best one-on-one wide receivers in the NFL. We're not in the business of trading away good players. And you can just leave that as the company line if you want. But the reality is, as a guy who used to coach in Philadelphia, Andy Reid used to say all the time, this is a relationship-driven business. And at some point in time, you can't just talk about culture. You have to kind of create culture. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that your players at some point in time do need to get along. They do need to be happy. They do need to feel as though they're being utilized and put in great situations to get the best out of them on a consistent basis. And when that starts going off the rails, you have to be mindful that you can't just be like, hey, you know what, you're too good. I don't care how pissed off you are. I don't care how much you hate it here. We're keeping you here, and that's that. You can't do that. And I think in this situation, I'm sure they're having lots of conversations behind the scenes about how do we get the best out of AJ? How do we keep him happy? How do we make sure the offense keeps humming along here? But if you can't foster that kind of relationship and that kind of harmony, you have to consider moving on from him. You just do.
That meme is a perfect illustration. I pointed this out earlier in the week. And Graz, I think you'll go ahead, Dan.
But the problem is the comparison with the meme is in that meme, the Flames are wins and division titles and Super
Right.
Bowl appearances.
True.
So, like, the Eagles look
True.
at it and go, like, if it was that bad, we wouldn't be winning
That's
this many
true.
games. So I think that's where that's where they push back on the outside perception that all is not well.
I understand that, but both things can be true at the same time, which is that they can
Yes,
still be winning
that's
because
true.
they're so ridiculously talented and good, and that there is a problem in a relationship with this particular player and someone or someone's. And again, I'm not going to pretend I know the insides of that. But to me, the example in the meme here is they managed to convince us that him sitting on the sideline reading a book during a game was not a problem. Like, oh, it's not really a big deal. Yeah, he's reading a book, but look, that just happens. That's how he keeps his mind in the game.
A month
No
later, they
NFL
won the
player-
Super Bowl.
No NFL players ever read a book. Right, I know. They won the Super Bowl anyway. But this year they didn't. And this year there were times when they looked like they were less than the sum of their parts. So let me get Tannenbaum in on this. If you were in this chair in two different places as the general manager in charge of assembling the talent and making sure it's all working, and you've seen this and whatever else it is that we have seen, what would you be thinking about doing?
Greedy, you got to trade him now, and here's why. One of the things you think about in the front office is you'd rather trade a player too soon than too late. And his average per catch went from 16.1 2 years ago to 12.9 this past season. Now, in fairness, that's not all on A.J. Brown. We know about the struggles in their passing game. But if I was going to consider trading A.J. Brown this year or next year, without question, his value, the maximum amount we could get as a 29-year-old receiver would be much more in 2026 than 2027. And again, there's some really good teams, Buffalo, Baltimore, New England, amongst others, that I think would say, wow, A.J. Brown, especially New England with Mike Vrabel, who had him in Tennessee, to say, hey, you know what, maybe we'll pay a little bit of a premium because A.J. Brown on a one-year deal could maybe get us over the hump.
Yeah.
Go ahead, guys.
That's the way to look at it. Someone could make it worth their while. If someone offers them a first-round pick, then I'm sure that has their attention and it's possible. But they are not out there of the mind of we need to get rid of this player in order to help us move forward and have success as an organization.
I think that's fair. Lewis, I got 30 seconds for a final thought. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just think there's, like when Mike was just talking about the drop-off in terms of his production, and we've talked about that on various different shows, like what is the reason for that? Look, at some point, like I don't think this is all just an A.J. Brown issue, okay? There just comes a point in time where sometimes things kind of reach the end of the runway. And that in the productivity, it's just like a law of diminishing returns. It just starts to go downhill. And in the words of like what Mike was just using right now, like your job as a general manager, right, is to like maximize value for a guy like this if in fact you deem that he's just no longer going to bring maximum value to you. And right now, AJ is still a great player who you could probably get a lot of great value for. So if you're not going to be able to continue to maintain that high level of production with this individual player, why wouldn't that be part of the conversation? Why wouldn't it be? And I'm not saying it's all on him. And see, that's the delicate nature of team building, right? There's a lot of different moving parts here. And in Philadelphia, it's no different.
That's right. People will hear this, and they will hear it the way they want to hear it. So they'll hear, oh, we're saying A.J. Brown is a problem, or we're not saying any of the sort. We're saying that for some reason it just doesn't seem to be working as well as it probably could be working for a player who is as obviously ridiculously talented as he is, and it might be in both sides' best interest for there to be a trade.